Institutes of the Christian Religion by John Calvin, Book 1, Chapter 14. Even in the creation of the universe and of all things, Scripture by unmistakable marks distinguishes the true God from false gods. Creation of the world and of men. Sections 1 to 2. Section 1. We cannot and should not go behind God's act of creation in our speculation. Isaiah rightly charges the worshippers of false gods with obtuseness, because they have not learned from the foundations of the earth and the circle of heavens who is the true God. Despite this, such is the slowness and dullness of our wit that to prevent believers from deserting to the fabrications of the heathen, we must depict the true God more distinctly than they do. Since the notion of God as the mind of the universe, in the philosopher's eyes a most acceptable description, is ephemeral, it is important for us to know him more intimately, lest we always waver in doubt. Therefore, it was his will that the history of creation be made manifest, in order that the faith of the church, resting upon this, might seek no other God but him who was put forth by Moses as the maker and founder of the universe. Therein time was first marked, so that by a continuing succession of years believers might arrive at the primal source of the human race and of all things. This knowledge is especially useful not only to resist the monstrous fables that formerly were in vogue in Egypt and in other regions of the earth, but also that, once the beginning of the universe is known, God's eternity may shine forth more clearly, and we may be more rapt in wonder at it. And indeed, that impious scoff ought not to move us, that it is a wonder how it did not enter God's mind sooner to found heaven and earth, but that he idly permitted an immeasurable time to pass away, since he could have made it very many millenniums earlier, albeit the duration of the world, now declining to its ultimate end, has not yet attained 6,000 years. For it is neither lawful nor expedient for us to inquire why God delayed so long, because if the human mind strives to penetrate thus far, it will fail 100 times on the way. And it would not even be useful for us to know what God himself, to test our moderation of faith, on purpose willed to be hidden. When a certain shameless fellow mockingly asked a pious old man what God had done before the creation of the world, the latter aptly countered that he had been building hell for the curious. Let this admonition, no less grave than severe, restrain the wantonness that tickles many and even drives them to wicked and hurtful speculations. In short, let us remember that invisible God, whose wisdom, power, and righteousness are incomprehensible, sets before us Moses' history as a mirror in which his living likeness glows. For just as eyes, when dimmed with age or weakness or by some other defect, unless aided by spectacles, discern nothing distinctly, so such is our feebleness. Unless Scripture guides us in seeking God, we are immediately confused. They who indeed indulge their own wantonness, since they are now warned in vain, will feel too late by a dreadful ruin how much better it would have been for them to reverently accept God's secret purposes than to belch forth blasphemies by which to obscure heaven. And Augustine rightly complains that wrong is done to God when a higher cause of things than his will is demanded. Elsewhere, the same man wisely warns that it is no less wrong to raise questions concerning immeasurable stretches of time than of space. Indeed, however widely the circuit of the heavens extends, it still has some limit. Now, if anyone should expostulate with God that the void exceeds the heavens 100-fold, would not this impudence be detestable to all the godly? Into such madness leap those who carp at God's idleness, because he did not, in accord with their judgment, establish the universe innumerable ages before. To gratify their curiosity, they strive to go forth outside the world. As if in the vast circle of heaven and earth enough things do not present themselves to engross all our senses with their incomprehensible brightness. As if within 6,000 years God has not shown evidences enough on which to exercise our minds in earnest meditation. Therefore, let us willingly remain enclosed within these bounds to which God has willed to confine us, and, as it were, to pen up our minds that they may not, through their very freedom to wander, go astray.